Okay, so you're learning this Rashi. Rashi comments in the words Hashem appears to Avraham. Rashi says two things. Hashem appeared to him to visit the sick. And then Rashi says, Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina said that it was the third day after his circumcision, and Hashem came to visit him. So we had a couple of questions about the Rashi. Question number one was, why did Hashem wait for the third day? And we answered that it wasn't Hashem waited for the third day. Hashem visited him every single day. And the purpose of the visit on the third day was also connected to the following event with the angels, or more rather, the Torah describes Hashem's appearance to Avraham in context of what was happening later. So Hashem appeared to Avraham every day after circumcision. Day one, it says clearly that God assisted him with the circumcision itself. And the second day is even more dangerous, according to some opinions. So for sure, Hashem visited him on the second day as well. But the question is, how does Rashi know that it was the third day that the Torah is describing here? If Hashem indeed visited him every single day, how can Rashi tell from the verses that Hashem visited him on day 3? So what the Rebbe basically says is that first of all, there are two things that Rashi is saying. Number one is that Hashem visited him, and then the second thing is Rabbi Chama Chanina said it was on the third day. So the Rebbe says that these 2 points that Rashi mentions are sourced in different things. The fact that Hashem visited him on the third day was not from this pasuk itself; it's rather from the continuation on the next pasuk. The fact that Hashem visited him in general, purpose was to visit the sick. So Hashem visited him. Why Hashem visited him? The reason we know that this verse was on the third day is because of the following verses. What does it say in the following verses? The following verses, it says that Hashem sent 3 angels, and each of these angels had different missions. One of the angels was Malch Rapha, the angel of healing, and that angel came to heal Avraham. Now, since a person after circumcision gets sick for 3 days, Rashi knows, based upon what we learned yesterday, that a mitzvah cannot be done in a miraculous way. You can't break nature. You shouldn't break nature, even if you can. And if you're at tzaddik, you're able to break the rules of nature. You shouldn't break the rules of nature to do a mitzvah, because it's just like since the purpose of mitzvahs is to elevate the physical world. So just like the mitzvah itself is meant to be done with physical objects and garbed in the concealment of nature, and the preparations for a mitzvah, like we learned yesterday that the Alter Rebbe asked the captain of the ferry to stop the ship, even though he could have stopped the ship miraculously. He asked the captain to stop the ship because he wanted specifically to do the mitzvah in a natural way, because the purpose of the mitzvah is to cause the fulfillment of Hashem's desire to have a home in the lowest realm. And therefore, it has to be done specifically within the realm of nature. And therefore, the captain has to be the one to stop the ship. So just as this is true for the preparations of the mitzvah and for the mitzvah itself, so too is this true regarding the consequences of the mitzvah. In this case, the fact that Avraham is sick after the circumcision. Since, according to nature, he's going to be ill for 3 days, so it cannot be that Hashem sent the Malach Rapha to heal Avraham before the third day. Because if he did, then the mitzvah would be missing something in its impact in the physical world. So you have to say it was on the third day that the Malach Rapha healed Avraham, because this is the way things are in nature. That's why the halacha is that a baby on Shabbos, there are different halachas about what you're allowed to do and you're not allowed to do after day 3 of the circumcision, because the baby is considered unwell until the 3rd day. So to Avraham, since he's naturally going to be sick until the 3rd day, so that's why Hashem only sent the angel on the 3rd day. But here's now another question. This question actually exposes a very fundamental thing in our Judaism. If indeed a person gets better on day 3, so what's the point of the angel? He'll get better anyways. So the answer is like this. The Rambam writes that the powers of nature, what we call the powers of nature, are sometimes called in the Torah and the Talmud angels. Why do we call the powers of nature angels? Because everything that exists in this world has a divine source. As the Talmud says that there is no blade of grass in the world that can grow unless an angel called Mazel hits it and says to grow. So since everything in the world, including what we call the powers of nature, are really coming from God's angels, they're coming from an angel of Hashem, which causes those powers of nature to do whatever they're supposed to do. So therefore, sometimes what people call a natural phenomena, let's say the phenomena of the wind blowing, sometimes that's called in the Talmud, an angel made the wind blow. Even though it's natural for the wind to blow. No, because in order for the wind to blow, the angel of God, who's assigned to cause the wind to blow, has to say, blow. There's no such thing as the wind blowing. There's no such thing as the powers of nature. Everything that's happening in the world is because of a divine instruction of Hashem through the angels of Hashem. So the fact that according to nature, quote unquote, Avram is healed on day 3. Why is he healed on day 3? This is because the angel Raphael, who's in charge of healing, he is the one who's sent to heal a person on day 3. That's what happens on day 3 to people naturally, quote unquote. That's only because Hashem sends Malach Raphael to do that. But ordinarily, you don't see an angel making that happen. Ordinarily, it just looks like something that happens by itself. But by Avraham, since Avram's divine source shined in him while he was alive in this world, so therefore he also merited, just like he merited to see Hashem, he merited to see the Malach Raphael. He saw it happen. So think about this in context of those who are getting COVID and healing after X amount of days. Yeah, you get it for 10 days, you get it after 11 days, the symptoms go away. If you have this, you have that. It's not that it ends after a certain amount of time naturally, or more accurately, the word that we're using naturally, what does that word really mean? It means God sends the angel Raphael after X amount of days, usually to heal. Sometimes Hashem sends the angel a little later, sometimes sends it a little earlier, but that's the general way God sends his angel for this disease. But it's not that there's some natural force by itself. The word natural force is a heresy. There are no other forces besides Hashem. There are no other things besides Hashem. There's a similar concept that the Rebbe said about the custom when a child turns 3 years old. You take the child to school and you wrap him in a talus and you tell the child to lick honey off of Hebrew letters, and you pour candies in the child, and you tell the child, here are candies from Angel Michal. Now, when I did this with my children, they right away said, Tati, that wasn't, why are you telling our brother that that's Angel Michal, when really it was Mommy and you and whatever? It's a good question. And it's a question really even for those children who aren't watching, and why are we saying that? The answer is, why is there something sweet in this world? Where does it come from that there's sweetness in this world? The sweetness of this, and there's another thing. Why are we telling the child that the Torah is sweet, the honey is sweet? We're telling the child to lick the honey off the letters because the Torah is sweet. The honey is sweet, not the letters. The answer is, all the sweetness in the world comes from the sweetness of Torah, and it's administered to the angel Michal. And when you tell a child that he should taste from the honey, and the child has enough faith in God specifically because he's a child. He's able to put the two together. When a human being experiences sweetness of honey, he doesn't right away associate that with Torah. Doesn't associate that with God sending the sweetness through the Malach Mochel. But a child has a greater level of faith and a more of a simplicity, as the Talmud says that children are called Mashiach. What that means is that since a child's mind and heart isn't developed yet when he's born, therefore he's more in touch with the essence of his neshama, and therefore there's no long bridge between the sweetness of Torah and the sweetness of the honey. He sees the sweetness of honey is in the sweetness of Torah. It's natural to him. The sweetness of the candies originate from Malach Mochel. So there happens to be that Malach Mochel sent this sweetness to the world, and this sweetness was garbed in this candy, and this candy was bought in the store. But the child sees a direct link to God sending this candy through Malach Mochel. In a similar way, every time a person's healed it's because of Hashem sending Malach Mochel. That Hashem made you get better. So when people, so that's why the Rambam says the powers of nature are called angels. Angels are nature, and nature is angels. There's no intrinsic power in nature. It's just Hashem sends healing through an angel, and we call that healing natural. The Chacham Tzvi says that the difference between a miracle and nature is that a miracle happens once, and nature is something that happens many times. So we call that nature. But it's not really different than the miracle. It's just something that happens a lot more often. But it's not intrinsically different. It's both acts of God. Okay, so that's the reason why Rashi knows that it happened on day 3, because Hashem wouldn't send the angel before day 3, because Avraham has to feel the full consequence of circumcision in order for the mitzvah to have the full impact to elevate the world. So we learn from this.
I got a few questions. Or
sure. You can see your face to ask these questions.
Since this is the first circumcision that there was, couldn't he have arrived on the first day, and that now became the natural way of how circumcision is? Also, just like this is just like Hashem made you suffer, parenthetically, because suffering is part of the game plan to get you to that happiness at the end. I mean, we learned this so many times in Chassidus, where you got to go through that difficult time, and then Hashem shows you the light. It takes you to the end of the cliff, and then He shows you the salvation all the way at the end, and you had all the stress and anxiety, and it was all for nothing. And it's all part of that plan to get you to bring out that deeper part of yourself, to trust in Hashem and know that it's all for the good, and that He's involved in that whole step. But you don't see that all the way until the end, when everything works out. And as you say, Hashem works in miraculous ways. He could figure out a way to do it without the suffering and without all the tests and trials and tribulations. So it's not really fitting with me as he needed to be sick for 2 days to reach that third day of being healed.
Okay, so 2 points. The first point I know. The second point I'm not so sure. I have to look it up. First point is the fact that people throughout history have this phenomena of being sick for 3 days is something that God planned before He gave us the mitzvah. In other words, is the Torah a manual or is the Torah a blueprint? People think the Torah is just a manual. In other words, there's life, I live, and the Torah tells me how to live. But it's really the opposite. First, there is the goal of creation. First, there's the Torah. And once Hashem has the Torah, Hashem has to create a space for the Torah to be implemented. So just like, for example, this table. I can't bring the table into a room where the room is full. So Hashem has to first create time and space. And once it's time and space, so then Hashem has a place for the Torah to be fulfilled. So Hashem's, when we say that a mitzvah, this mitzvah causes someone to be sick for 3 days, it's something that started on the day that Avraham was circumcised. That's something that Hashem planned before creation. That's part of the plan.
Right, and it only got manifest on that first time where it
Right.
came down to reality, and now Hashem was able to express the mitzvah of circumcision in the physical world for the first time.
Right. 1 second. So there's another letter of the Rebbe, I think, where the Rebbe says, the Rebbe asks something similar to what you pointed out to. I have to see the letter again to make sure that I'm quoting correctly. The Rebbe asks, how come this mitzvah is associated with pain specifically? Why does it have to be pain? And if I remember correctly, the Rebbe says something to this effect, that this mitzvah is meant to elevate the lowest part of a person, and therefore is to even elevate pain.
Mm-hmm.
Pain is the lowest kind of feeling that there is. A person who experiences pain, they feel the most, it's the lowest kind of feeling. And Hashem gives us this mitzvah to elevate pain, so that the pain itself, that's why not supposed to be, an adult has to have anesthesia. I just heard some horror stories from a male last night. Crazy stuff. Anyways, so therefore the mitzvah has to have pain, because the mitzvah is meant to elevate even our pain. That's what I think the Rebbe says in another place. Remind me to look that up. So what's the bottom line? What's the lesson we have in our lives? By the way, did I answer your question? You still have a question?
Not really.
Okay, I didn't answer your question. Go ahead. What's your question?
That again, Hashem works in miraculous ways. Why does he have to? Again, we can't obviously ask questions on why Hashem. That's just the blueprint. That's just the way he made it, is you got to go through that pain to get to that end, to bring out that deeper level. Circumcision just happens to have pain because it wants to elevate that deeper part of you and be associated with pain. But again, he could have made the blueprint without the pain and elevated yourself. But
okay,
it's one of those questions you can't really answer.
I just will say that there are some questions that I can't answer that are discussed in Chassidus. So even though if you can always ask why, but you'll notice the Rebbe asks these questions in many places. The Rebbe asks questions that in third grade you ask a question like, but yeah,
this seems like it's a tzedek question, and it's got to do more with the spiritual chemical properties, what's going on up above.
There is two lessons that everyone wants us to learn from here. Lesson number one is that it doesn't say in the Torah God appeared to Avraham. It says God appeared to him. It's a pronoun. The reason why a pronoun is used is because you may think, oh, I know Hashem appeared to Avraham because he's Avraham. Of course he appeared to Avraham. And therefore you'll say, you know who I'm going to visit when they're sick? I'm going to visit, someone who's really high and holy. When this person is sick, I have to go visit him. So therefore the Torah says God appeared to him, doesn't say to who. So you shouldn't think that you only should visit people who have some stature to you, whether their stature is their holiness, their stature is in your social arena. God appeared to him. Someone is sick, chas v'shalom, is a mitzvah to visit the sick. Doesn't matter who they are. Someone who's not so high up in your people that you want to visit. Number two, the lesson is that we shouldn't resort to miracles, to mitzvahs, even if we could. Even if Hashem gave you the keys, Rebbe, he says, here's a key, just you want to make this an easier way, it's up to you. So you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't take the key. Why not? Because a mitzvah is supposed to be done in a physical way.
So the healing of him on the third day is not a miracle.
Say again?
The healing of him on the third day by Melech Rafal is not a miracle. That's just nature per se.
Right.
And he happened to be zeicha to see the natural angel that's in the room that's healing. As we say with the doctor, it's not really the doctor, it's the angel. It's like just being able to see the angel that's in the room that's always there that you just can't normally see.
Right, exactly. And although the Torah says, it says note 67, although it says they appeared to him like people, so we have to say that, as Rashi says later on, he found out that they were angels. Number two, it says he saw Malach Rafal healing him, and he didn't see just things happening in the world. He didn't just see, oh, I'm feeling better today. He actually saw Malach Rafal healing him, but it happened on day three, because day three is when things happen in God's world. That's part of the process. I think, Reb, for us, knowing that Hashem is a genius, could do things different ways, we should also trust Hashem as a genius when He does choose to do things the way that we don't like. We should know that this is part of His plan of making the home in the lowest realm. We could daven, could ask for things to be easier, but when the things aren't or happening in a slower way than we want them to, we should believe that we should know the truth, that this is part of Hashem's plan. He wants to elevate the world, and this is part of the elevation of the world, going through the elements of nature, going through the consumed of nature. Anyways, have a great day.